This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, Mar Rabbi-sai, Afreilichen Erev, Shabbos, Parshas, Zachor. We're within a week of Purim already. Unbelievable. So, we're going to speak this morning about identifying Amalek. Because look, killing Amalek is one of the 613 mitzvahs, and you never know when you could bump into one. You could be, stopped over at a red light. You could be in the park. And when there's a mitzvah to do, there's a mitzvah to do. And, like all mitzvahs in the Torah, Shiluach HaKain, you always have to be ready for. Mechias Amalek. The story goes that the Chassam Sofer was once finished Shas as a young man, and he asked his Rabbi Rav Nosson Adler what he should do, and Rav Nosson Adler said he should fast for 3 days, and basically the Chassam Sofer fasted for 3 days, and his Rabbi told him when you finish fasting you should go pray in the forest, which he did, and he was encountered by a vicious anti-Semite who waited for him to finish davening because he wanted to harm Chas v'Shalom the Chassam Sofer, and the Chassam Sofer had no alternative, and the Chassam Sofer had to hit this guy, and he killed him. And his Rebbe told him, in the zchus of you finishing Shas and fasting for 3 days, you are zoicha to mekayim the mitzvah of mechias Amalek. So the question is, if that would happen to you, would you be ready? Would you be primed to do the mitzvah? So we're going to talk about a little bit identifying Amalek today. The Rambam Paskins in Hilchos Malachim Parakeh Halacha Daled and Hey says the Holy Rambam, Mitzvah Sa'aseh Lahachrim Shiva Amamim. It's a positive command to destroy the 7 nations. Shenemar Hacharem Tacharimim. You should obliterate them. If, let's say, one of them came into your house, let's say he needed to fix a pipe, and you didn't kill him, you're over alav. Shenemar le'sichaya kol neshama. Uchvar avad zichram, the Rambam says, but there are none of them around. They're not around anymore. Says the Radvaz, where are they? Says the Radvaz, you know why they're no more Zayin Amamin? Lefi Shabbat Sancherev u'Bilbal Ha'olam, because Sancherev came and he confused all the nations. He mixed around all the nations. So there are no more Zayin Amamin. So you're off the hook. In case you were worried, I know somebody's getting nervous over there. They thought their electrician the other day might have been a Prizi, and they weren't Mekayim the mitzvah. Don't worry, they're all mixed up among the Chinese and the Indians. Fine. However, the Rambam continues, V'chein mitzvah saseh la'abed zecher Amalek. Likewise, it is a positive command to destroy the memory of Amalek. Shenemar timcha ezecher Amalek. U'mitzvah saseh lizkar tamid masav aram arivasei. It's a mitzvah to remember always his evil actions and his hatred, kedei la'oyer evas, in order to arouse our eva to him. Shenemar zachar es asher asa lecha Amalek. Mipi hashmua lamdu. We learned from Mipi hashmua. Zachar, we have a tradition. Zachar b'peh, remember with your mouth. Lo sishkach b'leiv, she'asur l'shkoyach evasai v'sinasai. It is asur to forget his animosity and his hatred. Okay, so here's the bottom line. The bottom line is that when it comes to killing the Zayin Amamin, the Rambam says, don't worry, they're no more, they're lost, they're gone. And when it comes to Amalek, the Rambam doesn't say, hey, there are no more Amalekim around. And the Radvaz explained, why are there no more Zayin Amamin? Because Sancherev came and he was Mavalbel the whole world. So you cannot identify anyone as a definitive Girgoshite, Prizite, Amoiri, Knani. So then how could you identify someone as Amalek? The same way Sancherev came and he was Mavalbel Kol Ha'olam, he was Mavalbel Amalek. So the same way there's no mitzvah to kill Zayin Amamin, there shouldn't be a mitzvah to kill Amalek. So a few weeks ago I was in Cincinnati, and we visited the kever of Rav Lazer Silver. Rav Lazer Silver had a student, Rabbi Shlomo Warman, who had the zuchus to know when I lived in Kew Garden Hills. He was a Rosh Shiva in in Hebrew Academy in Nassau County for many years. And he wrote 7 volumes, Sheres Yosef on Shas, and also many volumes on the Yamim Tovim. He also wrote 2 books about the Holocaust. And I believe I once heard this from him, and he quotes in his Sefer that he heard in the name of Reb Chaim Brisker, that Amalek is not a nationality. Amalek is a mode of behavior. And any nation could fall under the category of Amalek. Ela kol ha'am ha'misnaheges b'shitasa shel Amalek. Ulefu zeh, kol am sheroitze lahashmid es Yisrael b'chal Amalek, any nation that wants to kill Klal Yisrael's Amalek. Ve'olet sivsa Torah, and about it the Torah commands, shetimcha es zichra mitachas hashamayim. V'shaper d'loi kazaram d'chvar avad zichram. Because unfortunately there are many, many nations that fall under the guise of Amalek. And this is Mavuar in the Yushalmi on Yevamos that refers to Haman as Koitzetz ben Koitzetz, Haman ben Hamadasa. What do you mean Haman ben Hamadasa? He wasn't the son of Hamdasa. He is the son of an anti-Semite, meaning he wasn't really Amalek. The Yushalmi seems to be saying that when we say Haman is Ben Hamadasa, he wasn't biologically Ben Hamadasa. It means he was the spiritual heir. He continued the mode of conduct of Hamadasa. So, anyone who wants to kill Jews is Amalek. So he says, "Umavur de Haman be'emes lo yah Amalek rach shehalak b'darkam." So Rabbi Warman says it comes out that, Chazal tell us that you're not allowed to accept Gerim from Amalek. So how could the Gemara say in Gittin, Mibnei Banav shel Haman lo imdim Torah b'Bnei Brak? It says because Haman wasn't from Amalek. Haman wasn't from Amalek. He was Ben Hamadasa. The Yushalmi says, but he wasn't Ben Hamadasa. He just followed in the ways of Hamadasa. But he wasn't ethnically Amalek. Someone who's ethnically Amalek, then you can't accept Gerim from them. But if you're just a Haman and you're qualifying as Amalek because you're following in the ways of Amalek, so then we would accept Gerim, and they're from Nebanav Shel Haman Lamin Tabiv Nebrak. Now that's a big chiddush to say Haman was not Amalek. I'm not prepared to accept that carte blanche that Haman was not an Amaleki, but that is the possibility that Rabbi Warman is suggesting. And based on that, I want to show you a number of interesting sources that many nations in history have qualified to be Amalek, even though it's hard to say that ethnically they're Amalek. So let me share with you a few stories. Number 1, Ube'inyan Simone Amalek. I heard from Rabbi Chiel Michal Feinstein. There's a story about Rabbi Yitzchak Volozhiner, the son of Reb Chaim Volozhiner, that he met the king of Russia. He had to meet with the king of Russia for a certain particular cause that affected Klal Yisrael. And when he was waiting with his entourage to be received by the king, the son of the king entered. And he mocked them, and he shamed them, and he scorned them. And when they left, when this entourage, Rabbi Yitzchak Volozhiner, left the house of the king of Russia, Rabbi Yitzchak said as follows, that he has a tradition from his father Reb Chaim, who has a tradition from the Gra, that there's a way to determine if a guy is an Amaleki. There's certain characteristics and modes of behavior that you could tell if someone's an Amaleki. And this kid had all the simanim. And who did this kid become? Nikolai, who was a vicious, brutal tyrant. And he said that the pshat in the pasuk, Reishis Goyim Amalek, that all the leaders of the nations of the world, we could interpret our Amalek. Now that's very interesting, because you would think if Nikolai was an Amalek, then why wasn't the king of Russia an Amalek? I mean, isn't it an ethnic nation? What was Rabbi Yitzchak Volozhin saying? This little boy was an Amaleki. How about his dad that he was meeting with? He never said that. So it almost sounds like, again, another substantiation to this idea that Amalek is not a nation, Amalek is a mode of behavior. And the leaders of the nations of the world who try to cause us harm, they qualify to be Amalek. Persecute. Thank you. The Stipler said over, there's a report in Archas Rabbeinu, that Reb Chaim Volozhiner said that he could recognize who is an Amaleki. So the Stipler said that I'm not sure if he meant in his external appearance or in how exactly you could tell someone's an Amaleki. Is it a certain style of tie he wears or a certain attitude? And why didn't Reb Chaim tell anybody about it? He didn't because if we know who Amalek is and then we're obligated to kill them, that's not going to be good for the Jews. So therefore, this was not a tradition that he continued to give over. However, amazingly, Rav Moshe Halevi Soloveitchik in the Sefer V'ha'ish Moshe, this is quoted in many Svarim, he said, Russia is Amalek! So you say that doesn't fit in with what we said Wednesday night, that Russia is Persia. Nobody said that the Friday shir has to fit into the Wednesday shir. There's no such halacha that the Friday shir has to be consistent with the Wednesday shir. I'm telling you what Moshe Soloveitchik, that Russia is Amalek. Oh, you know how we know? Gorbachev, Barabav, Laga Gav. Every name ends with Av because they come from a Sav. You ever wonder why all Russians end in Ovi? I'm sorry to, this is not the nicest thing to say. But why?
All the Bulgarian Jews.
That they just live among Amalekim. What could they do? They were given the great honor to be near, to have more opportunities to Mekayim the great mitzvah of Mechias Amalek. But a name that ends in Ovi comes from Esav, Rogachev, Charashav, Lankanov, Vizel Masha Kosov. That's why it says from the north the evil will open up. That refers to Edom. Who's Edom? Russia. By the way, the Chafetz Chaim said, what's the symbol of Russia? What are they called? Edomim. Their flag was the red circle. Why? Esav is Edom. Esav is red. He eats red lentils. His complexion is red. And he is called... That's why Esav was the first communist. Communists are Esav. Communists are Amalek. I didn't put it on the sheet, but it is reported that the Chafetz Chaim said that since Amalek is not a nation, but it's an attitude, and the Yabuskim were Amalek, even Jewish Yabuskim are Amalek, the Chafetz Chaim said. You hear that? The Chafetz Chaim said even the Jewish communists were Zera Amalek. And we have it over here. Rabbi Chanan Wasserman said over from the Chafetz Chaim, Lefiza b'yameinu asher Zera Amalek mizgabrim ma'oid atzleinu. Nowadays, that the Zera Amalek are very strong. V'hadavar baruch ki hu masa satan. Ha'itza amitaz ilachem negdam b'zraya mamish b'mesiras nefesh lahariga. The Chafetz Chaim said, okay, if there's Zera Amalek, then why are we not mekayim the mitzvah of Timcha? He said the reason is that in order to wage a war, you need a general. And we don't have people who are of the caliber to lead us in battle against Amalek. But if we had the generals, the admirals, we would have to do it. And by the way, Rabbi Yosef Nechemia Kornitzer also, he says that Bizman Hazeh, that we're fighting the war against Amalek, and many thousands of our brothers in Russia are near Dafim al-Savar, they're running away because of persecution, so we have to... Rabbi Yosef Nechemia is referring specifically to Shmir Shabbos, but he also identifies the enemy as Amalek, And by the way, in the Sefer Minchas Levi, he says the Gra already said that Russia was Edom. Okay, so just in case you needed to identify who are the Amalekim today, and again, does that mean that they're ethnically Amalek? The reason I wanted to give you this hakdama from the Reb Chaim Brisker, because it's important, otherwise it sounds incredulous. The Russians are Amalek. How could they possibly be Amalek? It's not. The answer is that it's Amalek, Reb Chaim says, is not a ethnicity, it is a mode of behavior. So that is shir number 1 today, and I want to share with you another idea regarding the Shabbos Zachor.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.